All right, 37,000 members. Listen, one church, zero elections. This is Christian Cultural Center in Brooklyn, the largest evangelical church in New York City, one of the largest independent churches in the entire country. Do you hear me? And on September 19th, 2025, the pulpit did not go to vote. It went from father to son. Now, today, the son sits in that chair, okay? Pastor Jamaal Bernard, installed as senior pastor of Christian Cultural Center, author, podcast host, and the newest name in a year that saw four of America's biggest pulpits change hands inside the same 12 months, okay? I'm not here to, I don't know, hand him any softball questions. And I'm also not here to ambush him either. I'm here to ask the question everybody's already whispering. What does installed actually mean? What did he earn versus what was given? And what does he want people to stop assuming about him? Welcome to Control the Narrative. I'm your girl T, your chief controller. Let's get into it. Welcome, Pastor. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored to have you here, sir.
Amen.
Extremely
Thank you.
happy.
Thank you so
Okay.
much for the invite. I'm so excited.
Where are you right now and what's going on in your life? Tell me about it.
I physically I am in my backyard, um,
Hmm.
relaxing away from my kids. It's the summer, so there's no school. But emotionally, I'm at a good place. Things are going well. I think, leaning in more into the role and the responsibility. Still dealing with the weight, but it's doing good. I'm excited.
Lovely. Now, listen, on September 19th, 2025, you were installed as senior pastor of Christian Cultural Center. I've actually been watching your journey for a while now.
Oh
Taking
wow.
over, yeah, I've been because the streets talk, and I'd be like, "What they talk about? Let me go ahead. Let me see what they talk about." So I know you took over for your father. Walk me through that day. What did being installed actually feel like from the inside?
I think a little surreal. Thinking back about it because of the length of time it took for it to happen. It was something that had me at a place where I was like, okay, wow, this is really happening. And then the panic starts setting in a little, like, okay, am I really ready for this? Because sometimes we ask for something that we believe we're ready for, and not until we experience it do we really do all of the variables come into focus. And so it was a day of, I think, excitement, a little bit of fear and trepidation because it's a serious role. I don't take it lightly, and yeah. So for the most part, that's where I was, and so it was like happening, but I was kind of like experiencing it, but not experiencing it, almost like an out of body experience as I observed and like, man, okay, this is really happening, and so that's what I felt that day, the day of.
Mm. And it feels like you've just continued to grow in that. But one thing I know is you didn't start at the top. You were chief of operations, director of public safety, founder of C3 Youth, and roughly like a decade running CCC's Long Island campus, starting in 2014, I think. Why did that operational path matter before you ever got near the main pulpit?
Well, it started actually 25 years ago when I told my
Mhm.
dad. I said, I'm excited, I'm ready for this, and I'm looking forward to, um, you know, seeing what God has for me, and I believe I'm called to this. And he said, okay, good, grab a mop. And so I said, okay, what's
Grab a
going on?
mop.
Like,
You're like, that's not what I was talking about.
I know I was ready for the sit down, the big theological framework, really going in and understanding, the mentoring phase of, forming my theology, understanding, why we believe what we believe, how we believe it, how do we support it. I was, looking forward to all of that. And he said, grab a mop. And I looked at him, I'm like, all right, I guess. And I did it anyway. I didn't do it happy. I did it with, a little attitude of frustration. But I'm like, okay, if this is the path, then I guess I got to walk it. And it wasn't for, maybe 5 years down the line that I asked him, I said, let me ask you a question. Why did you start me here? And he said, son, he said, no matter how good the speaker is, if you don't know how to run an organization, it will collapse. And you see that a lot with pastors who have great speaking gifts, but do not have a great administrative gift or talent. And so he said, you got to learn how to run the ministry, and I want you to work in all of the areas of the church before you even start trying to preach on that pulpit. And then he looked at
Mm.
me and said, wax on, wax off. I'm like, okay, Mr. Miyagi.
Of course, of course. He's
Right?
like Mr. Miyagi is like everybody's teacher, okay?
Yes,
Generation over
exactly.
generation, generation over generation. But
Yes.
the press coverage kept using the word installed instead of elected or hired. Was that language
Yes.
chosen on purpose? And what do you want it to be communicated to the congregation and to the public uh, that that's not correct? Like, correct the record
It-
for this congregation of 37,000.
and so it- one, it's certain languages is tends to lean more towards denominational, right? When you're dealing with a board or a presbyter or a certain organizational structure, where now you got to go through a process of being elected, and that's where you get some of those terms come from. Installed really just talks about the person was chosen, and based on that choice, now he's being presented to the congregation as a new leader of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Okay.
but there's a reality, right? So the elephant in the room is the whole idea of nepotism. And my dad said, he even told me, he told the congregation, he said, if my son does not have it, he will not get it, if that makes sense. And he said, so the process I was going through was a process to see if I really had what it takes to be the one that God uses for this next phase and next stage of CCC.
Yeah. And you're not the only one. The Potter's House, Victory Christian Center, Second Baptist Houston, all four major churches having a secession moment. And it landed at the
Yes.
same time in that same like 12-month window. So, did that comparison ever come up for you? And does it bother you to be grouped in with that?
No, the comparison never came up to me. I think there were we were looking at the models and saying, okay, what will work for us and what won't work for us, and because there was no real strong models for the Black church, right? We have some ideas, especially for a non-denomination organization like we have. And so we looked at the models and utilized how they did it, some of the things that they did, and took it and utilized that as what to help create the foundation of our idea of succession. It was exciting, and I think more so as I talked to some of my colleagues, it was like, hey, I'm excited for you, congratulations, more than any type of comparison, because we understood that we all are playing a different role, different location, different church, different demographic. And so I think there was a level of respect more than any type of competition.
Mm, makes sense. Makes sense. Your
But
father,
now they're watching and comparing and looking at the pews or the seats and seeing if people are coming back and are able to support. Because you look at the attrition rate when you're dealing with a succession, because people just love my
right?
dad, and we don't deal with that because the methodology in which we have done it has caused us to build a great relationship um, with the congregation, as well as they love to see the relationship I have with my dad. So he hasn't. It wasn't a sudden stop. It was a gradual change, and the installation just happened. But we were doing stuff together. I was preaching and leading prior to that, so this just was making it official.
Got it. Got it. And your father remains chairman of CCC Global, right? And
Yes,
right?
yes,
Okay,
yes,
right.
he
So
does. Yes.
how do the two of you divide authority now? And has anything gotten harder about being his son and his successor in this same role?
Right, I know. There are challenges, but because my dad's just the way he's wired, and the realities that he told me. He said, I got two concerns. He said, my first concern is that do you really have the conviction necessary to step into this role? And then two, looking at Ecclesiastes, I think it's chapter 2, he says where the writer is talking about everything that he's done, everything that he built, and then he's leaving it and wondering if whoever hands he puts it in will be responsible over the toil of, for my dad was 40 plus years. And so part of the conversation, and when it gets heated, because it does get heated, I'm like, Daddy, why are you leave my staff alone? Stop talking to my staff. Stop talking to my staff. And he starts laughing. He said, "Watch it, I'm your father." I said, "Yeah, I'm telling mommy if you don't." So it's some of those.
I'm telling mommy.
Yes, I tell my mother. I use my mother a lot, to help mediate because we're both hard headed. We're both type A personalities. He had a vision, but we have a new style and methodology in which we're pushing that vision. We're not changing the vision, but there's a method that we're operating and functioning. And it's hard for him
Yeah,
sometimes because he's like, "No, I wouldn't do it that way." I said, "No, I know you wouldn't do it that way, but this is the way I want to do it." Yeah.
that's funny. I'm telling mommy. I'm
Yeah.
mad at you. He said
Yeah.
I'm telling mommy. That is,
You got to find those individuals that our mentors are held accountable by. And the best person is my mother, because my mother will go after me. He says, "I got to go home to that woman." I said, "Yeah, I know. So you got to act right, or his mom's going to give you some act right."
oh my God. So he still has to have deference to somebody. I feel you.
Yeah, exactly.
So CCC is one of the largest independent churches in the country, okay, with real estate plans reportedly in the billions. What does financial transparency look like for you now that your name is the one on the door?
Um, I I think I'm more transparent now compared to the way my dad is. My dad is old school. Even in the house, you don't talk about finances. The finances is the adult's business, and we don't talk about it at home. And he carried that over into the ministry. But now I'm more transparent, letting the team know, hey, look, this is what we're spending. This is what This is why we're holding off on doing certain things. Talking to the congregation, hey, like for now, we got a $17 million um project that we're working on, and we're sharing it with the congregation and not sugarcoating it, because this younger generation needs to, they ask those questions. They ask the questions of what's going on with the finances, how things are going. So I try to be as transparent as possible, but there's a reality that the maturity of the individual receiving the information limits our ability to be as transparent as we would like to be. Not everybody understand what it looks like handling, $1,000, let alone $1 million.
Got you. Hmm. I don't know. What else is going on with you? Like what's going on? I don't want to ask all the questions. I
Oh
know
no,
you got some things
we
on your
launched.
mind. I feel like you
Oh,
have some
it's
things
going
on your
good.
mind in regards to
Uh,
just your job and your congregation and the people in the community. Like, what are you thinking about when you're not on a podcast? Because you got your own podcast. And as a matter of fact, you've written books, you
yes.
host your own pod off script. How much of your public presence right now is pastor and how much of it is brand? And are those things different for you? Because
Wow.
knowing that you have a pod, I know you got some things on your mind.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And well, I think that's a great question, because the first question is Jamal Bernard, the brand, separate from CCC, and that's what we're trying to do, because one of the things we don't want to do, and, is to build an organization on a personality, because if something happens to that personality, then the organization tends to have the conditions uh, to collapse or to decrease in membership, and then you go through a whole financial structure of things. And but me, my mind, I want to be able to get to a place where uh, my name is at a place where people say, "Oh, that's," when they look at my father, they say that's Jamal Bernard's father, instead of saying, "Hey, that's Dr. Bernard's son," right? And so that's the biggest tension of really trying to have my voice, present my voice, and then praying that people accept my voice, accept me for me. The shadow is always, he doesn't sound like his father. He's not Dr. Bernard, and he's only where he is because of his father. And that statement used to bother bother me. It used to bother me a lot. And so I started really listening and understanding what that statement means. Because, yes, that's true. I am only here because of my father. But that's how it's supposed to be. And some of the realities that we face in the community of color is that that's not the norm. So because it's not the norm, when we see it happening, we tend to bash it, make fun of it, hate on it. And so I got a lot of haters out there. And I'm like, no, this is how it's supposed to be. And your goal is not to be hating, but to learn from it so that you can start setting things up for your generations coming up behind you. Because people always want to talk about legacy. You only can have legacy if you have shoulders to stand on. And we
That's
don't
what
have
I was
shoulders to
looking
stand on.
for.
We start from scratch.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. That Pastor Jamaal Bernard. That's the guy right
Yeah,
there.
no, and I'm like, grow up, people. Let's stop hating and start being more excited and happy for when a brother is stepping up and doing what he has to do. And taking responsibility of somebody else's legacy. And so that's the tension that I live in right now. And then trying to, I think, get my family to understand what it is that I'm dealing with. And because they think of me, I'm just dad, Jamaal Bernard, and I can call and demand certain things. Even my wife, she sees it, but I think she doesn't really understand. And sometimes, marriage is not the easiest thing to navigate, especially when you're trying to navigate so many other elements of life. And so those are two things that I constantly say, okay, I gotta really work on, maintaining and being responsible, stewarding this legacy that my dad started, and then really securing my household to let them know that just because responsibilities changed, I'm still gonna be there. I might have to say no, not intentionally, but no might be a part of the conversation because daddy has a lot of stuff that he has to deal with. And so those are some of the things I'm juggling, dealing with, trying to make sure I don't stress my wife out. It's been 28 years, and the devil would love to try to disrupt this as well.
I love how your wife and your mom get so much deference in your life. I love that. I love that. So listen, what I want you to do though is let the people know, what you're working on currently and how they can continue to follow your journey and be a part of your community, even if they're not on the East Coast.
But yeah, so the next phase where I'm working on now, I'm actually working on a book detailing the journey of the reality where legacy and destiny meet. Too often you see it where it competes, right? And that's where you have a insecure leader and a very talented um, mentee. And so I'm just going to, it's gonna be a leadership book, but it's going to talk about legacy, and it's called Later the Name, and it should be out in September. So that's what I'm working on, finalizing some of those different things. And then if you want to see my journey, I'm acting like a content curator. So on my social media, I've been acting up a little bit, showing a little bit about behind the scenes of the person Jamaal Bernard. And you can see Jamaal Bernard Senior on Instagram, Facebook, Jamaal Bernard. And if my podcast is off script by Jamaal Bernard.
Awesome.
That's
Pastor Bernard, thank you for sitting in that chair. Thank you for answering the question straight. Thank you. We appreciate you. Here's what I want you to sit with, people. Installed or elected, inherited or earned, the institutions that survive are the ones that can answer the hard questions out loud instead of hoping nobody asks those questions. Uncomfortable questions need to be asked and answered. And today, he answers some of those for us. So go check out Pastor Jamaal Bernard's book, his podcast, Off Script, and Christian Cultural Center. All right. Support him. Support the work that he's doing and the empire he's building, because I think it's going to be a wonderful thing to watch. I've been enjoying watching the journey. If this made you think, hit subscribe and tap that bell to make sure that you get alerted the next time we go live. All right. Drop a comment. Tell me what you thought of his answers. And for a deeper dive on church secession and megachurch money and the PR playbook behind it, I want you to head to Control the Narrative on Substack. All right. I'm Tanya McKenzie, controller of the narrative. If you don't control the narrative, the streets will, and it won't be in your favor. I'll see you next time.